15-year-old Zara lived in the small but bustling town of Ikota, where the streets hum with life from sunrise to sunset. She was the kind of girl who carried sunshine in her smile, her laughter a melody that filled every room she entered. Smart, ambitious, and full of dreams, Zara wanted to become a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but one who fought for justice, who made sure that people, especially women and children, had a voice. She spent her days balancing school, helping her mother at their small food store, and losing herself in books about strong women who had changed the world. Her mother, Aisha, would often told her, "Zara, your voice is your power. Never let anyone take it away from you." And Zara believed that until the night everything changed. That evening had felt like any other. Zara had stayed behind at school for extra tutoring lesson, determined to ace her upcoming exams. The sun had dipped below the horizon by the time she packed her books and began to walk home. The streets were quieter than usual. The usual hum of vendors and children playing fading into the distant sound of motorcycles and scattered conversations. She clutched her backpack tightly, her sandals tapping against the pavement as she hurried through the familiar shortcuts. She was only a few blocks from home when she saw Mr. Kola, their neighbor, a man her family had trusted for years. He was standing by his car, parked along the deserted paths she usually took. At first, relief washed over her. He had always been kind, always greeted her mother with warm smiles. "Zara, my dear," he called out, his voice smooth to smooth. "It's late. Let me drop you home." She hesitated. Something in his tone sent a shiver down her spine, but she quickly shook it off. This was Mr. Kola, Uncle Kola as her mother often called him. He had known her since she was a child. There was no reason to be afraid. Still, she forced a polite smile. "Thank you, sir, but I'm almost home." He stepped closer, his smile unwavering. "Come on now, don't be stubborn. It's not safe for a young girl to walk alone at night." Before she could protest, his hand gripped her wrists. The fear she had dismissed moments ago exploded in her chest. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Don't fight me, Zara," he murmured, his voice turning dark. Panic surged through her as he dragged her towards the car. She tried to scream, but his hand clamped over her mouth. The world around her blurred, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. In that moment, Zara realized something terrifying. Sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones you should fear. She kicked, thrashed, beat his hand, he cursed, but his grip didn't loosen. The car door opened and he shoved her inside. The leather seat smelled of old cigarettes and sweat. Zara's vision blurred with tears as she struggled to breathe. Then the car engine roared to life. She clawed at the door handle, but it was locked. Mr. Kola turned to her, his once friendly eyes now filled with something terrifying. "No one is coming for you," he whispered. The last thing she saw before darkness swallowed her was the familiar street of Ikota disappearing in the rearview mirror. When Zara woke up, her entire body ached. The hair around her was heavy, the room dimly lit by a single flinging bulb. Her hands trembled as she pushed herself up, her mind still foggy from shock. She didn't know where she was, but she knew what had happened. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she beat them back. She forced herself to stand, her heart pounding as she scanned the small dusty room. There was a locked door, a tiny window too high to reach, and a chair tipped over in the corner. She had to escape, but before she could move, the door creaked open. Mr. Kohler stood there, a smirk on his face. "You are awake?" he said casually, as if they were having a normal conversation. Zara felt Billy rise in her throat. She wanted to scream, to fight, to make him pay, but fear had frozen her in place. "You will learn not to struggle next time," he continued, stepping closer. "No one will believe you, Zara. No one." Something inside her snapped. No one will believe you? He was wrong. She had to believe in herself first. She had to fight. When he stepped closer, she grabbed the chair and swung it with every ounce of strength left in her body. It hit his shoulder, sending him stumbling back with a curse. That was her chance. She bolted past him, her feet pounding against the floor. The hallway was narrow, leading straight to a door. She didn't stop to think. She ran. Her fingers fumbled with the lock, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. "Please, please, open." Footsteps thundered behind her. Just as his hand grabbed her hand, the door burst open. Light flooded in. A woman gasped, "Zara!" It was a stranger, a passerby, but that moment of distraction was all Zara needed. She tore away and ran into the streets, screaming for help. The woman grabbed her, shielding her, while a crowd began to gather. Mr. Kohler froze, his confidence faltering as people turned to him with suspicions. Zara collapsed, sobbing. He kidnapped me. He hurt me." The murmurs turned into angry shouts. The police were called. Mr. Kohler tried to run, but there were too many people. He was caught, dragged to the ground, handcuffs snapping around his wrists. Zara had survived. The days that followed were a blur of hospital visits, police reports, and questions. So many questions. Zara felt drained, but she refused to back down. She told the police everything. She told her mother. At first, people whispered. Some doubted her. Maybe she's exaggerating. Are you sure she didn't misinterpret something? Mr. Kohler is a respected man. But Zara stood firm. She wouldn't be silent. Her mother Aisha was furious. She stormed into the police station demanding justice. "My daughter will not be another statistic," she shouted. Soon word spread. Women's rights organizations took up her case. Lawyers volunteered to fight for her. More victims came forward. Zara wasn't the first. When the trial began, Zara sat in court, her hands shaking, but her chin high. Mr. Kohler tried to tear her apart, questioning her clothing, her choices, her memory, but Zara refused to be silenced. "I know what happened to me," she said firmly, "and I won't let him do this to anyone else." Her testimony was powerful. The evidence was undeniable, and after weeks of trial, the verdict came guilty. Mr. Kohler was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Tears streamed down Zara's face as her mother hugged her tight. Justice has been served, but her journey wasn't over. The nightmares didn't go away overnight. The fear still crept in sometimes, and the scars, both visible and invisible, remained. But Zara wasn't alone. She attended therapy, met other survivors, and spoke at events about her experience. She became an advocate for girls like her, working with organizations to fight against sexual violence. Years later, she stood in a courtroom, not as a victim, but as a young lawyer. She took a deep breath, looking at the judge. "My name is Zara Aisha Bello, and I stand here today to defend the rights of those who cannot speak for themselves." She had turned her pain into purpose. She had reclaimed her power. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a fighter, and she would never be silenced again. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. See you next time.